Our next guests have made it their goal to give the underdogs that stood up for their rights in the midst of hostility, political stonewalling, violence, and economic hardship their rightful place in the history books. Joining me now are the co-authors of the California Book Award's gold medal winning book, Wherever There's a Fight: How Runaway Slaves, Suffragists, Immigrants, Strikers, and Poets Shaped Civil Liberties in California. Elaine Ellenson and Stan Yogi, thanks so much for joining us here on Bay Sunday.
Thanks so much for inviting us.
Tell me how you two got together and put together such an inspirational book of stories. Ellen?
Well, we both worked for many years together at the American Civil Liberties Union, and during that time we met some amazing people who fought for immigrant rights, for voting rights, just people who inspired us. But then after 9/11 and the passage of the Patriot Act, the roundup of Muslim and Arab American men, we realized how fragile those rights really were. It really hit home. And our publisher actually approached us to look at other periods in California history when there were also major violations of civil liberties, and to see how people fought back so that today we could also be inspired by those struggles.
Stan, tell us about one or two of these unsung heroes.
One of the unsung heroes that really inspires Elaine and me is a man from San Leandro named Fred Korematsu, who was one of the handful of Japanese Americans during World War II who defied the government's orders forcing Japanese Americans from the West Coast into government camps. And Fred Korematsu was arrested, and he challenged his arrest all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, which unfortunately ruled against him in 1944. But nearly 40 years later, a professor who was researching Fred Korematsu's case in the National Archives discovered proof that during World War II, government attorneys had intentionally suppressed documents that showed there was no evidence of Japanese American espionage, and to add insult to injury, they instead argued that there was reason for to suspect Japanese American loyalty.
And now, I'm familiar with Fred and was very lucky to meet him while he was alive. They have a national day of, Fred Korematsu National Day of Civil Liberties. But his is one of the stories that really is important because a lot of history classes tend to leave this information out. In fact, Fred's own daughter, Karen, told me that she didn't even know about it when she was in school.
Right.
That's why it's so important.
Exactly. I'm a total product of California public education from kindergarten to graduate school, and I didn't learn about Fred Korematsu's story until researching this book.
What do you think was the most egregious violation of civil liberties in California?
You know, we searched all the way back really until the founding of the state in 1849, and it's kind of hard to pinpoint because there were obviously massacres of native Californians, the Indians here. Slaves were allowed to be held here in California, even though it was a free state. If you were just passing through and you owned slaves, you could keep your slaves here. A lot of people didn't know that.
They think it's all just in the South. It's all happened
exactly,
in the South.
And it wasn't. But we really do identify the internment of 120,000 Japanese Americans during World War II as really the most egregious violation, because an uprooting of a whole community, as Stan explained, based on false information, was really probably the most difficult thing that the state has endured.
You have said that there are reminders of these struggles present all around San Francisco, the Bay Area. If you know where to look, give me an idea of that.
Well, for example, the rotunda, the steps in the rotunda of San Francisco City Hall was
the beautiful City Hall?
The marble steps, yep. Exactly. That was the site of a protest against the House Un-American Activities Committee in 1960, in which police unfurled hoses, fire hoses, and hosed down student protesters down those steps.
I mean, it really is reminiscent of what happened in Birmingham during the civil rights with the hoses and things. So,
yes,
you know, and we don't know these things. People forget that in California, you know, it seems like this all happened somewhere else, but it didn't.
Right. In 1934, there was a general strike, and the dock workers went on strike, and 2 strikers were killed right at Mission and Stewart Street, which people walk by every day. Thousands and thousands of San Franciscans went on strike in honor of their killing, and it meant later that contracts were signed with the labor union. So it was a very big event, but it's something that we walk by every day and may not realize.
Well, reading this book, we will know more about it, some incredible stories that you have put together, and perhaps it will be required reading one day in California schools. Thanks to both of you for being here, Elaine Ellison and Stan Yogi's book, again called Wherever There's a Fight, How Runaway Slaves, Suffragists, Immigrants, Strikers, and Poets Shaped Civil Liberties in California. You can find it at your local bookstore or visit their website at whereverthere'safight.com. Coming up on Bay Sunday, it is a growing trend in the sports world, running barefoot. We'll learn more about it when we return.